Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 41 in the book of Deuteronomy. Where does the American justice system come from? Where does justice come from? We're going to be looking in Deuteronomy chapter 16. So the big principle is that God is just. And to say this at the time, 1250 BC, that's spiritually revolutionary. So many of the false gods were specifically known as being unjust, capricious, unreliable, erratic, and unsteady. So justice is a characteristic of God himself, and then he wants it to be a characteristic of his people. So historically, injustice was a definitive feature of, dare I say, every civilization, every culture up to this time. There's no Constitution, there's no Bill of Rights, there's no Magna Carta, there's no law of the Medes and the Persians. There's nothing. There might be a local leader or a king, and justice came through that person. It's really hard for us to even imagine this as we stand on 3,500 years of the shoulders of justice. It's been said about America that America has the most unjust legal system in the world, with the exception of all the others. So it's imperfect. It's the best we got. It's the best the planet has ever had. But it didn't come from nowhere. So we're going to look today at where it came from. It came from God. It came from the Jews. It came from the book of Deuteronomy. Here it is, Deuteronomy 16, verse 18. You shall appoint judges and officers in all your towns that the Lord your God is giving you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not pervert justice. You shall not show partiality, and you shall not accept a bribe. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of the righteous. Justice and only justice you shall follow, that you may live and inherit the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So I can't emphasize enough how revolutionary this paragraph is. It was never before seen on this planet. People just didn't expect justice. They didn't even hope for it at this time. It's fair to say that people actually expected injustice. That was what was kind of par for the course at the time. So a justice system here is called for by God with organization and purpose, not just to do the whim of the most powerful guy around, the guy with the biggest, stick. The history of maybe a king being a judge, the jury, and the executioner. No. God is saying, I want a true justice system and judges that judge the people with righteous judgment. And there's a goal, there's a purpose, so that at the completion of this process, you end up with righteous judgment. So have a system that calls the balls and strikes with a firm strike zone, and you shall not pervert justice. So endeavor, as much as you can, not to befoul this process. This was hinted at in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 17, where it says, you shall not be partial in judgment. You shall hear the small and the great alike. You shall not be intimidated by anyone, for the judgment is God's. The small and the judge stands under God. And the case that's too hard for you, regular justice guy, you shall bring it to me, Moses, and I will hear it. So up to this point in history, let's just talk about this again. This was just a story of the strong dominating the weak. And here, the small stands on equal footing with the great. Here, the small and the great and the earthly judge stand before the heavenly judge. And that changes everything. So he says, you shall not bear false witness in court. Why? Because you, in this court or in this judgment place, you are being watched. So ultimately, we are to fear him because he's the ultimate judge. So regarding this system, it's tiered toward difficulty. In other words, Moses gets the hard cases. And it's local, it's righteous, it's not partial, and it's not to be influenced by a bribe. Verse 19, you shall not show partiality, you shall not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of the righteous. So justice heretofore has been swayed severely by power, and in this case now money. So money subverts the cause of the righteous. Because when you go to court, if you know you've done nothing wrong, you're probably not offering the bribe. It's the unjust guy that's offering the bribe. So in conclusion, He's saying, do not pervert justice. Don't show partiality towards power or riches. Don't accept bribes. Don't bear false witness. That's in the 10 Commandments. Because ultimately, all this is being witnessed by God himself. So justice, the whole concept of justice, derives from the very character of God himself. So let's try to make this practical at the end here. So practical justice. We all stand before God in what we say and do and how we judge. So if you are involved in any part of the justice system, maybe in your home, maybe in relationships, maybe in work, maybe in the public sector, to represent God and his justice faithfully. So pray for this process. It's imperfect. We all agree to that, because it still bears the scars of injustice because we're involved with it. So this imperfection, this very imperfection of our justice system, is one of the reasons that Jesus had to come. So we stand before a perfectly just God. I always get the kick out of people that carry around the sign and say, hey, we want justice and we want it now. Well, not a single person ever has presented them at the pearly gates or the throne of God, the judgment seat of God, the bema seat of God, and asked for justice. Not one. No one is carrying a sign saying, I want justice. In fact, we carry a sign sort of symbolically saying, I don't want justice, or worse, I want injustice. We can only ask for injustice in the sense that we can only ask that the just penalty that's supposed to be upon us, that it would be borne by somebody else. And that is Jesus, who doesn't deserve it. So our only hope is to stand before the judgment seat and say, hey, I'm with him. God is just, but he's also the justifier. So the American justice system comes from God. The justice system that we will rely on before the judgment seat is also based on the justice of God. And note to self, we are all in trouble absent the generous injustice that is borne by Jesus. Injustice is borne upon him. It's done upon him so that we can be just before God. Thanks for listening.